The story begins with Layla, a young woman working as an English teacher. She had endured years of domestic violence at the hands of her husband, and after reaching her breaking point, she finally decided to divorce him. However, even after leaving her past behind, Layla continued to struggle with emotional distress and loneliness. Seeking a fresh start, she moved to a new city and secured a job as an English teacher at a local high school. On her first day at the school, the principal introduced her to the history teacher, who was assigned to show her around the classrooms. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, we meet Jason, a 19-year-old boy living with his family. His household consisted of his parents, a younger sister, and an older brother. Coming from a middle-class background, his family struggled to make ends meet. Jason's older brother had resorted to selling drugs to earn extra money, but he was eventually caught and sent to prison. Jason's parents were determined to prevent him from making the same mistakes as his brother. They constantly urged him to focus on his studies and build a better future for himself. However, Jason had little interest in academics and found school to be a burden. Despite his poor performance, his parents still held on to hope that he would change. It was revealed that Jason had been expelled from multiple schools in the past, and now, following in his brother's footsteps, he had also started selling illegal substances to make quick money. His primary goal was to earn enough to support his younger sister's education and ensure she had opportunities he never had. At school, Layla was teaching her students when Jason, who was also in her class, sat in the last row, trying to avoid drawing any attention. He spent most of his time outside class engaging in reckless activities with his friends, often getting involved in drug use and street fights. One day, while Layla was alone in the classroom, Andrew, the PE teacher, approached her. He complimented her unique and engaging teaching style, smiling warmly. Layla returned his smile, and the two began a casual conversation, marking the beginning of their acquaintance. Later that night, Layla called her mother, seeking comfort in their conversation. As they talked, emotions overwhelmed her, and she struggled to hold back tears. Being in a new city without any close connections, she felt an immense sense of loneliness. The following day, after school ended, Jason approached Layla and hesitantly admitted that he needed help with writing. When she asked about the topic, he replied that he had to write about himself but didn't know what to say. Sensing his hesitation, Layla assured him that he could share anything with her, and whatever he said would remain strictly between them. But Jason wasn't ready to open up, so he left without saying anything more. Layla, concerned about his behavior, followed him. However, before she could speak to him again, the history teacher approached her and bluntly remarked that students like Jason were beyond help. Layla, refusing to believe that any student was a lost cause, firmly stated, "To me, all students are equal." The next day, as she was reviewing student records, she came across Jason's file and learned that he was a new transfer with a history of poor academic performance. This revelation deepened her concern for him. Determined to help, she decided to pay closer attention to Jason and guide him toward a better path. Later, in class, the students were asked to present the poems they had written. When it was Jason's turn, he nervously stands up and begins reading. His poem is raw and filled with emotion, reflecting deep pain and truth. Layla listens intently, deeply moved by his words. Once class ends, she approaches Jason and praises his poem, telling him that his writing is exceptional. She encourages him to apply the same focus to his studies, assuring him that he has great potential. Hearing this, Jason can't help but smile. It's the first time someone has appreciated his work. The next day, while at school, Layla is approached by Andrew, the PE teacher. He invites her to join him at a pub later that evening. Wanting to unwind, Layla agrees. That night, Layla and Andrew enjoy a few drinks and dance together. Unknown to her, Jason is also at the same pub with his friends. He watches Layla enjoying herself, smiling as he sees her happy. Seeing her dancing makes him want to dance too, but he remains in the background. After a while, Layla leaves the pub and drives home. The following day, she notices Jason skipping class and wandering outside the school. Disapproving of his behavior, she confronts him later when he returns to class. Taking him aside, she firmly tells him not to skip class again. She then makes him an offer. She wants to hold an extra 30-minute session for him every day after school so he can get help with his studies. Surprisingly, Jason agrees. From that day on, Layla starts tutoring him after school. However, instead of focusing on the lessons, Jason finds himself constantly staring at her. Over time, his admiration turns into something deeper. He starts developing feelings for her, but Layla remains completely unaware of his growing affection. That night, Layla sits alone in her apartment, feeling lost and lonely. She yearns for someone who understands her, someone she can truly connect with. Just then, there's a knock on her door. When she opens it, she is shocked to see Jason standing there, his face bruised, his nose bleeding. His clothes are disheveled, and he looks like he's been in a fight. Worried, she quickly brings him inside. Jason reassures her, saying, "I can't go home like this. I just need to clean up, and then I'll leave." Concerned, Layla asks what happened to him. Jason simply shrugs it off, calling it a small fight. He gets up, preparing to leave after cleaning himself up. But just as he is about to walk out, Layla stops him. Layla notices that it's raining outside and offers to drop Jason home in her car. Jason agrees, and they set off together. On the way, Layla tries to start a conversation by asking Jason about his family. However, he avoids the topic, making it clear that he doesn't want to talk about it. A little while later, Jason asks her to stop the car and leads her to a scenic viewpoint overlooking the city. The sight is breathtaking, with the city lights glowing beautifully in the distance. As they stand there, Jason suddenly says, "I saw you dancing at the pub. I want you to teach me how to dance." Layla laughs but agrees, and they begin dancing together. However, as Jason moves closer, he subtly starts touching her, using the dance as an excuse. Feeling uncomfortable, Layla quickly pulls away. She firmly tells him, "This is wrong. I'm your teacher, and we can't cross this line. This shouldn't happen again." Jason nods, but deep down, he doesn't want to stop spending time with her. Layla, on the other hand, also enjoys his company but refuses to admit it to herself. Without saying much else, she drops Jason home and drives away. The next morning, Jason's mother comes across his exam results and is pleasantly surprised to see a significant improvement in his scores. Excited, she asks him how he managed to do so well. Jason smiles and responds, "It's all because of my new teacher. She helped me." His mother, pleased with the news, tells him, "I'll make sure to thank your teacher at the next parent-teacher meeting." Meanwhile, Jason finds himself scrolling through Layla's pictures on social media. His attraction to her has now grown into something much deeper. That evening, Layla goes to the same pub again with Andrew. Coincidentally, Jason is also there with his friends, but his eyes are locked on Layla the entire time. At their table, Andrew curiously asks Layla about her past, specifically about her ex-husband and why they got divorced. His questions make Layla uncomfortable, and she excuses herself to go to the restroom. Seeing her leave, Jason follows her. The moment she steps out of the restroom, Jason grabs her by the wrist and pulls her into an intense kiss. For a brief moment, Layla gives in, kissing him back. A part of her is undeniably drawn to him. But as soon as reality sets in, she abruptly stops and pulls away, realizing that what just happened was completely wrong. Shaken, she quickly leaves and returns to Andrew, making up an excuse about her mother being unwell and needing to go home. She hurries toward the exit, but Jason follows her. Just then, Andrew notices Jason walking after Layla. Meanwhile, Jason shows up outside Layla's house. Layla initially refuses to meet him and tells him to leave. However, Jason pleads, saying he only wants to talk and apologize for what happened. Hesitant at first, Layla eventually opens the door. Jason takes this opportunity to pour his heart out, confessing his feelings for her. But Layla lies, saying she doesn't feel the same way. Jason doesn't believe her. "If you don't want me, then why did you kiss me back that night?" he questions. "It was a mistake," Layla responds. Jason, refusing to accept this, kisses her again. This time, Layla doesn't resist. She can no longer deny her feelings and their passion takes over. The two end up getting intimate. Despite knowing the significant age gap between them, Layla realizes she has fallen for Jason. However, she warns him that no one should ever find out about their relationship. Jason agrees, but finds it amusing when she insists that what happened between them should never happen again. The next day, Jason visits his suppliers, continuing his involvement in the drug trade. Meanwhile, at school, Nancy approaches Layla, revealing her feelings for Andrew. She asks Layla to stay away from him. Later, during an extra class, Jason attempts to kiss Layla again. She quickly stops him, reminding him that they can't act like this in public and that no one should ever know about them. Jason respects her wishes, but playfully tells her to close her eyes. When she does, he places a delicate chain around her neck as a gift. Layla is touched and smiles warmly. That night, Layla confides in her mother over the phone, admitting that she has feelings for someone younger. Her mother advises her to marry someone who will truly make her happy. The next day, Layla and Jason go on a secret outing, spending time by a serene lake. They laugh, enjoy each other's company, and Jason takes pictures of them together on his phone. Curious, Jason finally asks why she moved to this city. Layla hesitates but eventually opens up about her past. She reveals how her marriage was abusive, and after suffering for years, she finally gathered the courage to divorce her husband and start over. Hearing this, Jason feels deeply hurt for her and reassures her, "I will never hurt you." Later, when Jason is taking a shower at home, his mother secretly checks his phone. To her shock, she finds pictures of Jason and Layla together, too close to be just a student and teacher. The next day, during the parent-teacher meeting at school, Layla goes to Andrew to request a file. While handing it to her, Andrew smiles and says, "We make good friends, don't we?" One evening, Jason's mother visits Layla at school. As they sit down to talk, Layla tries to explain how much Jason has improved in his studies, but his mother suddenly grows furious. "I enrolled my son in this school so he could focus on his education, not waste his time running around with teachers like you," she snaps. "It would be best if you stay away from him." With that, she storms out, leaving Layla stunned. The tense exchange does not go unnoticed. The principal, seeing Jason's mother upset, approaches Layla. "What happened?" she asks. Layla, trying to avoid suspicion, simply replies, "She was just in a hurry to leave." However, Nancy, the history teacher who had been watching from a distance, has already begun to put the pieces together. She starts suspecting that there's something more going on between Layla and Jason. That night, when Jason arrives home, his mother confronts him directly. "Tell me the truth, Jason. What's going on between you and that teacher?" Jason doesn't hesitate. "I love her," he confesses. His mother's face darkens with anger. "You have to end this right now," she demands. She believes Layla is taking advantage of her son. Jason, however, defends their relationship. "It's not like that, Mom. You don't understand." A heated argument erupts, and in frustration, Jason storms out of the house. Meanwhile, Layla is on the phone with her own mother. She finally confesses the truth. The younger man she had mentioned before is actually her student. Her mother is horrified. "Layla, this is wrong. You need to end this immediately," she insists. Just then, Jason arrives at Layla's house, but instead of welcoming him, Layla lashes out. "How did your mother find out about us? I told you not to tell anyone." Jason, taken aback, replies, "I just found out today too. I didn't say anything. I swear." Layla is visibly shaken. "You need to leave," she says firmly. "If anyone at school finds out, I'll be fired." A few hours later, Jason returns, holding a bouquet of flowers. Seeing him at her door again, Layla sighs. She hesitates, but eventually forgives him. That night, they share an intimate moment once again. The next morning, as they sit together, Jason brings up the inevitable. "Sooner or later, people will find out," he says. Layla nods, a worried expression crossing her face. "We have to figure something out before things spiral out of control." Hearing this, Jason says, "I have some money saved up. We could leave this place together and start fresh somewhere else." But Layla shakes her head. Running away wasn't the solution. The next day at school, Jason is holding Layla's hand, talking to her when Andrew sees them. His expression darkens as realization hits him. This was why Jason had been so drawn to Layla all along. Later that evening, as Layla stays late at school to finish some work, Andrew seizes the opportunity. He corners her and forcefully tries to take advantage of her. Shaken and horrified, Layla returns home, replaying the incident over and over in her mind. She had never expected Andrew to do something like this. That night, Jason arrives at her house. Noticing her distress, he asks what's wrong. Layla, unable to hold it in, tells him everything. Jason's hands clench into fists. "You have to go to the police," he says, furious, but Layla shakes her head. "Andrew threatened me," she explains. "If I report him, he'll expose our relationship to everyone." The next day at school, Jason can't hold back his anger. The moment he sees Andrew, he lunges at him, punching him repeatedly. The fight quickly escalates, drawing attention. Within minutes, the police arrive and restrain Jason before taking him away in handcuffs. Later, Jason's mother arrives at the police station and gets him released. But as she walks out with him, she spots Layla standing nearby. Fuming, she turns to her. "Stay away from my son," she warns coldly before walking away with Jason. At school, Layla is heartbroken, thinking about Jason and how things have spiraled out of control. That night, she takes a stand. She confronts Andrew, telling him, "Everything you did to me, it was caught on the school's security cameras." Andrew's face turns pale. "If you don't drop the charges against Jason, I'll go straight to the police," she warns. Andrew, realizing he has no choice, reluctantly agrees. The next day, Jason shows up at Layla's house, relieved that the charges against him have been dropped. But before he can say anything, Layla looks at him with sad eyes. "I'm leaving this city," she says softly. Jason's smile fades. "What? Why?" Layla takes a deep breath. "Because I finally understand that our relationship is wrong. I can't do this anymore." Jason is shattered. "No, please," he whispers, his voice breaking. Tears well up in Layla's eyes, but she remains firm. "You need to move on, Jason. You have your whole life ahead of you." Jason, devastated, watches as Layla walks away. That night, he returns home and breaks down in front of his mother, crying in her arms. Meanwhile, Layla boards a bus, leaving the city behind. And with that, the story comes to an emotional end.